Hello, welcome to my channel. This is Dr. Emmanuel. Today I want us to do a brief description of what the vermiform appendix looks like, okay? The human appendix. Just have an overview of the structure of the appendix. So this is Emmanuel Academy. You're welcome. Let's proceed. So on this first image, we can see what the abdomen looks like. Open the whole of the entire abdomen. We can see the colon. We can see the omentum. Okay, you can see the mesocolon and all of that. So obviously the transverse colon has been pulled up. It's been reflected up for us to appreciate the topographic, landscape of the colon. And there, right there in the right iliac fossa, in the right lower quadrant, we can see the vermiform appendix. Okay, yeah, so that's how it looks. So it's actually, attached to the cecum. It develops from the cecum. And right there, we can see the ascending colon, the transverse colon, the descending colon, the sigmoid colon, and we can see the rectum there. Okay, and that goes caudally as the anal canal. So functions of the appendix. I think when I was in medical school, we taught, that the appendix was a vestigial organ, which means it had no beneficial, no attributable benefits. But recent studies have shown that the vermiform appendix, serves as a reservoir for useful, gut bacteria, intestinal bacteria. And usually this happens after maybe treatment for after gastroenteritis. We said that when one is having loose stools, that you might lose some of your useful colonic bacteria. Okay, but then in the recovery phase, you have some of those bacteria coming back from the reservoir, which is the appendix. You can see, then going into the cecum, into the ascending colon, the transverse colon, descending colon. Yeah, so it's just a thought that this supposed vestigial organ actually plays an important role as a reservoir for useful bacteria. So the appendix also contains a small component of the gut lymphoid tissue, okay, which is called the GALT, the G-A-L-T, the gut associated lymphoid tissue. And this image was extracted from Wikipedia. The previous image, this one, and most of the other images we're going to see are actually extracted from the Atlas of Human Anatomy by Frank Netters. So just looking at some numbers, dimensions of the appendix. So the average length of the human appendix is 9 centimeters. Okay, that's average. It could range from 6 to, I think, up to 20-something centimeters. But the average length is 9 centimeters. Okay. Now the base of the appendix is located 2 centimeters below the ileocecal valve, or the ileocecal valve. So 2 centimeters caudal to the ileocecal valve. Okay, that's where you have your base of the appendix. The diameter of the appendix is roughly 6 millimeters. So if you have an appendix that is wider than 6 millimeters, you begin to say that appendix is, is swollen or enlarged, or inflamed, as the case may be. So this image from Frank Netter's Atlas of Human Anatomy, we can see a closer view of the vermiform appendix, or simply called the appendix. We can see that the appendix is an offshoot from the cecum. Okay, it's just a very cylindrical structure from the base of the cecum. And here we can see what we call the taenia coli. Okay, so we have one taenia coli, we have another taenia coli, and then we have one. So this is we have the omental, we have the free one, we have an omental taenia coli. Okay, so the omental one should be there, and then we have the mesocolic. So if you look at all the taenia coli, they all conglomerate at the base. Okay, they all conglomerate They all meet at the base of the appendix. So this has surgical relationship or surgical importance. So while doing an appendectomy, the most constant parts in terms of location of the appendix is the base. Okay, the rest of these parts can be found anywhere. This tip can actually be in this inferior ileocecal recess, could be pelvic, it could actually be in the retrocecal recess, it could be here. So it can actually coil and land anywhere, but the most constant, position is the base of the appendix. So usually we use this tinea coli, we trace the tinea coli to find the base of the appendix, okay? So here we can see the appendicular artery, and we'll get to understand this appendicular artery actually comes from the superior mesenteric artery. Okay, so we have this ileocolic, artery, which is a branch of the superior mesenteric. We've got the colic branch, we've got the ileal branch, okay? And from this ileal branch, we can see the anterior and posterior cecal artery, okay? And then this appendicular artery also comes from the superior mesenteric. Yeah, let's proceed. So as we said, the most constant part is the base of the appendix when it comes to location, okay? The tip of the appendix can actually be found in several places. So retrocecal, it can be retrocecal, which means it can be behind the cecum. In this previous image, we saw that there's a retrocecal recess, okay, which is just a peritoneal infolding, peritoneal invagination. So if this tip of the appendix is actually behind the cecum, so it's a retrocecal position, and in 64% of people, the tip of the appendix will actually be retrocecally positioned. That's why you find the base, and when you find the base, you pull the rest of the appendix out to do an appendectomy, okay? Or even if you're doing laparoscopic, which is a clearer one, you would probably 64% of people find that the tip of the appendix is actually retrocecally positioned. In 32% of people, to be in the pelvis, as we can see, okay? And then it could be pre-ileal or post-ileal, which is either in front of the terminal ileum or behind the terminal ileum, and it could be subcecal, okay? Which is just under the cecum. That's the one there, okay? So retrocecal is behind, as you can see in the dotted lines. Subcecal is just sitting under or inferior to the cecum. And then we have the pelvic, which are these two, okay? Pelvic is actually this one, is further down. Then you have the pre and post ileal, and then some other positions. Here you can see the appendix in the right upper quadrant of the abdomen. So sometimes like in advanced third trimester pregnancy, when the uterus has pushed everything up, a woman who is pregnant in her third trimester having appendicitis could have a right upper quadrant pain. In situations of situs in vessels, or when you have a malrotation, gut malrotation, you can have your ascending colon now being on the left side, and then you have your appendix on the left side. So this is an image of what an inflamed appendix looks like. You can see a normal appendix. An inflamed appendix obviously is wider than 6 millimeters, and it looks horrible, isn't it? It looks like it's about to rupture or burst. It looks red, it looks inflamed. Okay, so this is what an inflamed appendix looks like, okay? So just looking at the blood supply of the appendix again, we said it comes from the superior mesenteric artery, which is a branch of your descending aorta. Okay, so that's the superior mesenteric artery. And we can see a couple of major branches that it gives off. So it gives off the middle colic, it gives off the right colic artery, the middle colic artery, it gives off the inferior pancreaticoduodenal arteries. And then it gives off this ileocolic artery that has a colic branch or colonic branch or colic branch, and an ileal, okay, an ileal branch. And from this ileal branch, we can see the appendicular artery coming, okay? So that's the appendicular artery there. So the ileocholic artery, cholic branch, ileal branch, and you have that appendicular artery, which supplies the appendix. So you can see that coming from this. So it's all from the superior mesenteric artery. Okay, just needed to mention that. So we've come to the end of looking at what the appendix, the vermiform appendix looks like. We've said most times it's in the right lower quadrant of the abdomen, usually at this Mac-Bonny's points. Mac-Bonny's point, where you draw an imaginary line from the anterior superior iliac spine to the umbilicus. So 1/3 of the way from the axis, or you can say 2/3 of the way from the umbilicus. Okay, that's the Mac-Bonny's point. So in most cases, the appendix is at the Mac-Bonny's point. Okay, but in some situations, like we said, in the third trimester pregnancy, it could be in the right upper quadrant, in congenital gut malrotations, or in situs inversus. You can have structures that are meant to be on the right or the left, okay, and the appendix is on the left side. But that's not common. That's very rare. Usually, just clinical correlation. Usually, when the appendix is inflamed, the pain usually starts, as a dull pain in the periumbilical, around the umbilical region, because the appendix actually originates from the midgut, embryologically. So that pain is more central when it starts, and then when the peritoneum eventually gets, when the peritoneum becomes inflamed, the parietal peritoneum, the pain then is more localized to the actual position of the appendix. Okay, so that's just it. So we've come to the end of this revision session on the vermiform appendix. Okay, if you think this video has been helpful, I know it's a very simple topic, but it's important. If you think it's been helpful, kindly like this video, subscribe to my channel so you'll be notified when I produce further revision videos, and kindly share this video with your friends. Thank you.